The whisper that broke us. The night was everything a wedding should be. Soft lights spilling like liquid gold from chandeliers. Tables wrapped in white linen and roses. Champagne fizzing in tall crystal flutes. Laughter rising above the hum of music. On the dance floor, David and Maria swayed together. Newly married, their faces glowing with a love so pure. It made even hardened cynics soften. And then Claire leaned into me. "Don't get any ideas," she whispered. Her perfume sweet, but her tone sharp as glass. "Marriage is for men who actually deserve it." Her words sliced through the music, colder than the champagne in my glass. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the couple twirling under the spotlight. I forced my lips into a faint smile, because that's what Claire expected, me swallowing her venom quietly, as I had done too many times before. But inside, my mind wasn't numb. It was calculating for 2 years. Claire and I had played house. We lived together in the home I owned. To outsiders, we were stable, enviable, the couple who had it together. What they didn't see was how the foundation was eroding bit by bit. With every insult disguised as humor. Every comparison to someone better. Every reminder that I wasn't from her world. Claire's family had money. Old money, polished money. The kind that valued appearances above everything. They wore their arrogance like tailored suits. They looked at me and saw someone useful. Someone solid but not dazzling enough to belong. Claire at first had seemed different. She loved my steadiness, she said. She admired my independence. She claimed she wanted something real, not the superficial show her family adored. I believed her foolishly, but over time, her family's voice became her own. At first, it was small things. Jokes about my car, practical. She'd say which was her code word for embarrassing. Comments about my clothes. How I wasn't fashion forward. Remarks about my friends not being the right kind. She always laughed afterward as if to soften the cruelty. But I heard the truth behind it. I'm a risk analyst by profession. My job is to study cracks in systems before they collapse, to predict disasters before they arrive. And in my relationship, I had seen the fractures, long before Claire whispered those words at the wedding. Her remark wasn't casual. It was a confession. She didn't see me as a man to build a life with. She saw me as a placeholder, a provider but not a partner. Someone who filled space until something or someone better came along. That was my proof, and once I had proof, I didn't need anger, I didn't need an argument. What I needed was a plan. I turned my head and smiled at her as though her words meant nothing. She patted my hand, smug in the belief that she had put me in my place. What she didn't know was that she had just set her own destruction in motion. The rest of the reception blurred around me. Laughter clinking glasses. The band playing cheerful love songs. On the surface, I was the perfect boyfriend. I clapped during speeches. I toasted to the bride and groom. I even danced with Claire, spinning her across the polished floor, while she basked in the attention. But beneath the mask, my mind moved like a machine, assembling the pieces of an exit strategy so precise. It would leave no doubt, no loose ends, and no chance for Claire to rewrite the truth. I needed allies. The first was Maria. The bride herself, I found her between dances when Claire was busy gossiping with friends. I told her flatly what Claire had whispered. Fury erupted in her eyes at my wedding. The nerve of her, she hissed. When I explained what I wanted to do, during the bouquet toss, Maria's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "Oh, this will be better than anything I planned." She said the second was my sister Laura. Sharp-witted, bold, a lawyer who thrived in battle. I pressed my car keys into her palm and whispered instructions. She would pack my overnight bag, retrieve a small velvet box from my closet, and wait for my signal. She hugged me once, smirking like she'd been waiting for this day. The third was the DJ $100 bill, and a short conversation was all it took. He grinned, eyes glittering. "You're about to make history, my friend," he said, sliding the cash into his pocket. By the time the champagne glasses were refilled and the band prepared for the bouquet toss, my plan was set in motion. Claire didn't notice she laughed too loudly with her friends. Her face flushed from champagne, already envisioning herself at the center of the bouquet toss drama. She pushed her way to the front. Ready for the spotlight, she thought tonight would be her moment. She had no idea it was going to be her downfall. The bouquet and the ring. The announcement came just as the night reached its peak. "Ladies and gentlemen," the DJ's voice boomed. Full of playful energy, it's that time. "All the single ladies gather up. We've got a bouquet to toss." Excitement rippled through the room. Women laughed and squealed, rushing toward the dance floor. Claire nearly tripped in her heels as she shoved her way forward, her champagne glass still half full. "This is it," she whispered loudly enough for everyone around her to hear. "Watch me catch it." She wanted an audience. She always did. The crowd parted. Leaving Claire in the center, her hands poised, her face glowing with greedy anticipation. I stayed behind near the edge of the dance floor, calm, steady, invisible in the noise. My sister Laura slipped back in a small velvet box hidden carefully in her purse. She met my eyes, once gave the faintest nod, and disappeared into the crowd. The music shifted, a teasing drumbeat rolling through the speakers. Maria, the bride, stood with her back to the crowd, bouquet in hand, lifting it high as the women squealed. But instead of tossing it over her shoulder, she spun around with deliberate grace. Gasps spread through the hall like sparks in dry grass. Maria's eyes locked on Claire for one sharp second, a silent message of disdain before she walked straight past her. The crowd split in stunned silence as Maria made her way toward the back of the room, her wedding gown trailing like a banner of rebellion. And then she placed the bouquet in Emma's hands. Emma, she wasn't a stranger to me. She had been a friend of the bride's, someone I'd spoken to in passing, someone whose smile carried a softness Claire never had. She was quiet, thoughtful, and far from the type of woman who demanded attention. The moment Maria placed the flowers in her arms, her face flushed in confusion. "I what no. I wasn't even," she stammered. Maria leaned in, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "Trust me." The crowd erupted. Some clapped, some laughed, some whispered furiously, but Claire froze, her mouth fell open, her hands still outstretched, for a bouquet that had never been hers to catch. Shock twisted her face into something ugly. "What is this?" she shouted, her voice sharp and breaking. "That's not how this works." Her outburst silenced the laughter, the music, the clapping. For one glorious moment, the entire hall turned to her, watching her tantrum unravel in real time. That was my cue. I stepped forward, the world slowing around me. Every detail sharpened: the glittering chandeliers, the hush of hundreds of eyes, the way Claire's face blazed red with humiliation. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "it's exactly how this works." Emma turned, startled as I approached. Her hands trembled around the bouquet. I dropped to one knee. The gasp that swept the room was louder than the music had ever been. Every eye was on me now. Claire let out a strangled cry, pushing forward, but Laura blocked her path with a smile sharp enough to draw blood. I pulled the velvet box from my pocket and opened it. Inside, the ring gleamed beneath the lights. "Brilliant and undeniable, Emma," I said, my voice steady, carrying across the stunned ballroom. I've wasted too much time with the wrong person. Tonight made me realize I don't want to spend another day pretending. Life is too short for people who don't believe in us. But you're kind. You're real, you're everything I never knew I needed. Will you marry me? The room erupted. Half in cheers, half in gasps. Emma's eyes went wide, her lips trembling. For a heartbeat, she stood frozen. Bouquet in one hand, shock in her face. Claire's scream split the air. You can't do this, he's mine. But she was wrong. She had never really had me. Emma's tears spilled over as she nodded, whispering so softly only I could hear yes. I slid the ring onto her finger. My hand steady, my heart finally free. The hall exploded in applause. Maria whooped loudly from the stage, throwing her arms in triumph. Laura's laughter cut through Claire's rage as she dragged her toward the exit. Claire clawed at the air, shouting curses. But the sound of celebration drowned her out. For once, the spotlight wasn't hers to steal. It was ours as I stood with Emma's hand in mine. Bouquet clutched between us. I didn't feel like I had stolen a moment. I felt like I have finally claimed what was meant for me all along. And Claire? She could have her pride, she could have her family's money, their cold marble houses and hollow approval. But she would never have me again. What I deserved. The days after the wedding felt like stepping out of a storm. For 2 years, my life with Claire had been constant noise. Arguments disguised as conversations. Tension hidden beneath expensive dinners. Hollow affection masquerading as love. It was exhausting, a slow erosion of self-worth. I hadn't even realized until the silence came, now that silence was golden. The story of the bouquet and the proposal spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, photos and videos had hit social media. Hashtags exploding with debates. Some called it cruel, others called it poetic. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was unforgettable. Claire tried to reclaim the narrative. She told anyone who would listen that I had betrayed her, that I had humiliated her in public. Her family backed her, of course. They always did, but whispers followed them everywhere. Now in their world, reputation was currency, and she had spent hers recklessly. Meanwhile, Emma and I found ourselves at the center of attention. We hadn't asked for reporters reached out. Strangers messaged friends wanted the inside story. But the truth was simple. I had been living a lie. And that night I walked away from it. Emma and I didn't rush. We weren't swept up in a fairy tale whirlwind. We spent weeks just being... We went for quiet dinners. Long walks, conversations that ran deep into the night. She asked questions Claire never cared to ask about. My childhood, my dreams. The way I thought about the future. And she listened, really listened. It was startling how natural it felt. Love wasn't supposed to be heavy or cruel. It wasn't supposed to make you smaller. With Emma, I felt taller. Stronger, lighter. 6 months later, we stood on a beach at sunset. It wasn't grand or showy, no glittering chandeliers. No champagne towers, no 100 pairs of eyes waiting to judge. Just the sound of waves kissing the shore. The sky painted in hues of rose and gold. And a small circle of people who mattered. Maria and David were there, still radiant in their happiness. My sister Laura stood proudly at my side. Arms crossed, her grin wide. A few close friends smiled warmly, their feet sinking into the sand. Emma walked toward me in a simple ivory dress, the hem brushing against the tide. Her hair flowed in the ocean breeze, her eyes shimmering with the reflection of the sun. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't just witnessing beauty. I was part of it. As we exchanged vows, I thought about the man I had been with Claire. Silent, cautious, shrinking into myself. And then I thought about the man I was becoming with Emma, honest, open, unafraid. When I slid the ring onto her finger, the one I had offered in front of hundreds that night. It wasn't a spectacle this time. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about choosing peace. We kissed under the fading light, the sound of waves and cheers blending into something timeless. Later, as the sky turned dark and the stars began to shimmer, I stood barefoot on the sand. Holding Emma's hand, Maria raised a glass of wine and laughed. Best bouquet toss in history. Laura clinked her glass against mine, whispering, "You finally came home to yourself." And I realized she was right. Claire had been a chapter 1, written in ink that stained but didn't last. She had been a lesson, not a destination. She was the crack in the foundation that forced me to build something stronger. Emma was the foundation, solid, steady, real. As the tide rose wrapping around our feet, I tightened my grip on her hand and whispered, "This is what I deserved all along." She smiled, leaning against me, her voice soft but certain. "And this is what I've been waiting for." The storm had passed. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of love, and it was ours.